Apple Pie is another Amends by ToEatAPeach, read by Alex Mabella. Chapter 15. The following week, Hermione's case of nerves has completely vanished. At work, she's whistled show tunes and witty comebacks and well-formed arguments in favor of a primary school program for giants. At lunch with Harry and Ron on Wednesday, she's belly laughs and eye rolls and bed puns. And with Pleiades, when he arrives at her window on Thursday evening, that must never be seen by another human being. This time, her invitation contains only one line of that perfect calligraphy. It asks very simple. Shall we? With her own flourish of ink, she writes back. We shall. She has a giddy moment where she considers fleeing straight away to his library and handing him her reply in person. Not to see him sooner. Just to test out the flu, of course. Of course, she says aloud with a giggle. Hearing her, Pleiades angles his head entirely to one side. Do I sound crazy, boy, talking to myself out loud? He cocks his head fully in the other direction, an owlish confirmation of her insanity. She giggles again anyway and pats his sleek feathers until he presses his large head into her hand, almost cat-like in his affection. The comparison amuses her even more when he begins to make a series of low, rhythmic hoots she would almost swear is a purr. Still stroking his feathers, Hermione leans closer. Pleiades, can I ask you to make a quick stop before going back to the manor tonight? His large feathered eyebrows nudge together, which she takes to mean, maybe, maybe not. Such a Malfoy, she grumbles, but she's grinning as she fetches a spare piece of parchment in her quill. She scrawls out a big note, charms it dry, and attaches the note as well as her reply card to Pleiades' thin leg. As she presents him with a handful of treats, she says, This cruet is for Ginny Weasley, at number 12 Grimmauld Place, London. It's on your way home, I promise. Pleiades narrows his luminous eyes to indicate how much this extra work irritates him, but he doesn't drop his additional parcel when he flutters to her window. Just like your owner, she says, passing him a few more treats for the road. All bark, but only a little bite. Perhaps this offends Pleiades, because he gives her thumb a playful nibble, probably to remind her that he is, in fact, a Malfoy. Hermione waggles her fingers at him in reprimand and opens the window so he can get on with it. Then she returns to the book she abandoned upon his arrival and settles into her couch with a contented sigh. At 5 p.m. that Saturday, the sound of Hermione's activated flue whooshes throughout her flat. She sets down the kettle she was just about to put on for tea and rushes to her living room, where someone entirely unexpected stands, brushing dust from his clothes. Harry! She cries out in surprise, moving forward to hug him. It isn't until she's already wrapped her arms around him that she pauses and pulls back to inspect his face. What are you doing here? She demands. Is Ginny okay? Where is she? Last-minute Quidditch tryouts. It's nice to see you too, friend. You don't mean that, Chase. Harry beams. I do. She's been handpicked to try out for the National World Cup team. Summer training begins next month, to run alongside Harpy's practice. That's fantastic. But Malin, she's going to be exhausted from the double workouts. Harry nods sympathetically and then flashes a lecherous grin. And so bloody fit. The wedding is the week after the World Cup. Can you imagine how she'll look in our honeymoon? Hermione sighs. Why must you always force me to smack you, Harry Potter? Because I'm the chosen one? He tries, and they both dissolve into a fit of laughter, one that doesn't stop her from swatting him playfully over the head. Tea? She asked, and so he follows her into the kitchen, where she uses her wand to set the kettle boiling. She joins Harry at the table, bringing with her a platter of the ginger snaps she created last night. After Harry finishes the first one, he looks at her thoughtfully. You did something different with these, didn't you? A little heat on the back end? She smiles in confirmation. Cayenne. It's one of my favorite secret ingredients for spice-heavy desserts. They're quite good. I know, she says, levitating the steaming kettle to pour the hot water into their cups. Harry laughs at her self-assurance as he takes another biscuit from the platter. Lord, Hermione, you're starting to sound just like Malfoy. He must notice the way her wand twitches as she floats the kettle back to the stove. Harry, however, has never been a pushy friend. Instead, he chews ginger snaps and waits for Hermione to say her piece. Finally, by his third biscuit, she lowers her cup and levels him with a pointed stare. Does Ginny actually have World Cup tryouts tonight? Yes. And did you really come here to help me pick out an outfit? Yes. Under her disbelieving glare, he sighs. And no, look, Ginny did have to cancel tonight, but it was my idea to come here in her place. So you could interrogate me? To her surprise, Harry cackles. Well, yeah. Did you bring some Veritas home with you then? Oh, I must have left it in my other robes. Hermione snorts and tries hard not to let that sound remind her of Draco. Merlin, Harry, you really are an aura now, aren't you? He looks so pleased by his statement that she can't help but sigh in defeat. She's not mad, not really. After all, Harry's her best friend. At some point, he was bound to get curious about the way the PTSD pastry tour recently seems to have morphed into something else. Well, you might as well go on with it then, she says good-naturedly, lifting her cup towards him in a welcoming gesture. Apparently that's all the cue he needs, because he blurts out, "Are you and Malfoy dating?" "Jump right to the point, why don't you, Harry?" Aloud, Hermione says, "Nope." She pops the P emphatically, exaggerating the letter with a smack of her lips. "Are you, going to?" Hermione furrows her brow and silently dares him to push that issue. Harry takes the hint. They fall into meditative silence, sipping tea and chewing ginger snaps, until he finally raises his green eyes to her brown ones. "Guess you should get on with it then," he says begrudgingly. She frowns. "Get on with what, Harry?" He moans, runs a hand through his messy black hair, and then drags that hand over his face. "The fashion show. The fashion show," he mutters behind his fingers. "I promised Jenny I would perform her duties tonight, and I always keep my promises." Hermione sets down her cup and smirks in a way that she knows is Malfoy-esque. "You do realize that you've brought this upon yourself, don't you?" Harry nods gravely. "I do, and I will face the consequences of my actions like a good Gryffindor." She pats his hand, jumps from her chair, and proceeds to subject him to almost 2 hours of payback. All the dresses Ginny left there last week go on display, especially the outrageous ones. Hermione and Harry both giggle at a long white gown covered in ostrich feathers, a set of robes embroidered with moving glow-in-the-dark solar systems, and a fluffy pink and gold taffeta number that could only have been popular in the 1950s. Finally, at 7:15, Hermione gets down to business and tries on the black silk dress she's been eyeing all week. If it's possible, she loves this one even more than the dress she wore last weekend. Tonight's dress fits perfectly snug in the strapless bodice, but flaring prettily at her waist when she spins. It even has deep hip pockets where she can hide her wand. Without Mavie there to direct things, Hermione opts to leave her hair wild and her lips color-free. But she does slip the transfigured heels back on and fasten diamond studs into each of her earlobes. When she exits the bedroom and performs a twirl for Harry, he lets out a low wolf whistle. "Wow, Hermione, you look almost as good as Ginny would in that dress." She snorts, dipping one foot behind the other in a kind of curtsy. "Considering how you feel about her in clothes, I'll take that as a compliment." It's then that Harry spies her heels. Hermione?" "Yeah." "Since when did you start wearing shoes like that?" "What, you don't like them?" "They're nice, and they definitely show you off in the leg department, but Merlin, Hermione, they're so tall for you." She glances down at her pointed toes. "Oh, I know, but Draco's at least a head taller than me, and it's nice to look in the eyes one way." Hermione tries off when she realizes what she said. She glances back up at Harry, and he's watching her again with a concerned frown. "Are you sure you're not dating Malfoy?" "Really, Harry, really?" She infuses her words with as much indignation as possible, mostly because she doesn't know the answer to his question anymore. Thank you for listening to today's chapter of Apple Pies and Other Amends by ToEatAPeach, read by Ella. If you would like to stay up to date on upcoming chapters and stories, you can follow me on YouTube, Tumblr, AO3, or Instagram. Thank you to ToEatAPeach for letting me use their story, and thank you to all of you for listening.